When Queen Camilla abruptly cut all contact with Princess Anne, the royal household fell into a state of stunned disbelief. Was it a private fallout, or a sign of a deeper war within the monarchy? This was no passing grudge. It was a declaration. And as the walls of Buckingham Palace absorbed the shock, whispers turned to panic. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The signs were subtle at first. Quiet changes to the royal calendar, scheduled calls mysteriously cancelled, communications between their offices dwindled until they disappeared altogether. And then came the leak Camilla had ordered her staff to block all forms of contact from Anne. No calls, no texts, no private invitations, just silence. It wasn't a technical glitch or an oversight. It was deliberate, and it sent shockwaves through the already fragile royal network. Senior aides were instructed to route anything addressed to the Princess Royal through layers of secretarial red tape, essentially walling her off from the Queen's inner circle. Camilla, once seen smiling and gracious at public engagements, suddenly appeared guarded and cold. She dodged questions about Anne with tight-lipped evasion and curt nods. Public appearances became rehearsed performances, but something had clearly broken beneath the surface. Even King Charles was rumoured to be blindsided. One royal insider whispered that he had no idea it had gone this far. It wasn't just a private spat, it was a strategic isolation, executed with chilling precision. The tension bled into public life. At a recent charity gala, Anne, ever stoic, let slip a line that sent the tabloids into a frenzy. When asked if she had spoken to the Queen recently, her reply was icy and unflinching. "I don't chase ghosts." The message couldn't have been clearer. This was no miscommunication. This was war cold, royal war. And while palace sources tried to maintain the illusion of calm, the silence between Anne and Camilla roared louder than any headline. It's no secret that the two women have clashed before. Power, protocol, and pride have all played their part over the years, but this time something had snapped. Something had shifted beyond repair. And as the monarchy stood divided behind gilded doors, the question now was no longer what happened, but why it happened, and what it would mean for the future of the crown. But to understand this royal rupture, we must rewind the clock to a moment neither woman ever truly forgave nor forgot. Before Camilla became queen, and before Anne cemented her legacy as the family's unshakable pillar, a seed of rivalry had been planted. A secret feud that brewed beneath forced smiles and stiff waves. What really happened behind closed doors at Highgrove, and who betrayed who first? The year was 1970, and the royal family was unknowingly watching the birth of a quiet, calculated rivalry that would fester for decades. At the centre of it stood two women, young, sharp, and drawn to the same man. Anne, ever dutiful and deeply loyal to the crown, had grown close to Andrew Parker Bowles. Their relationship, though never formally acknowledged, was the worst-kept secret among royal circles. He was charming, gallant, and carried the kind of masculine bravado that the rigid institution so often celebrated. But behind Anne's back, another story was unfolding. Camilla Shand, then barely a blip on the royal radar, was already laying claim to Andrew. Some say Anne never saw the engagement coming. Others insist she knew, but never believed Camilla would dare act on it. When the news broke of Andrew and Camilla's engagement, Anne was reportedly devastated. And not just because of the man, because of the betrayal. What hurt more than the headlines were the whispers. That Camilla had not only stolen a lover but had used her proximity to Anne to do it. There were murmurs of private letters, intimate, vulnerable words from Anne to Andrew disappearing under mysterious circumstances. Letters believed to be intercepted, maybe even destroyed, after quiet intervention from the palace. A scandal that was never made public, but one that left a scar deep beneath the surface. The late Queen Elizabeth, a matriarch who saw through smiles and silences alike, is said to have cautioned Charles early on, "Watch Camilla around Anne." That warning, whether whispered or imagined, echoed through the years like prophecy. Anne, with her military precision and unwavering sense of duty, viewed Camilla as an outsider, a commoner with no lineage, no royal bearing yet somehow rising. Anne reportedly saw her not just as a threat to tradition, but as an intruder attempting to rewrite the rules. To Camilla, Anne was the embodiment of everything she would never be. Born into royalty, untouchable, beloved by those who valued history over modernity. Camilla didn't just feel watched, she felt judged. And that judgment turned into resentment. Their clashes weren't always loud, but they were seismic in consequence. They disagreed over charities, over public messaging, over how the monarchy should evolve. But above all, they fought for proximity to the throne who had the Queen's trust, who influenced Charles, who shaped the future of the monarchy. Camilla was quietly gathering ground, Anne quietly losing patience. It wasn't about popularity, it was about position. And both women knew there wasn't room for the two of them at the top. But personal grudges only deepened when power came into play, and Camilla began stepping into shoes Anne believed weren't rightfully hers. Once Charles took the throne, Camilla's quiet ambition exploded into full force. But she wasn't the only woman commanding respect within palace walls. Princess Anne, the unbending royal enforcer, wasn't ready to be sidelined. Behind the velvet curtains, a cold war began over influence, image, and legacy. For decades, Anne had carried the reputation of being the hardest-working royal. Her unwavering dedication to duty, her rigorous schedule, her no-nonsense approach, she had become the embodiment of the monarchy's backbone. But now, with Camilla crowned queen and the spotlight shifting, something began to unravel. Camilla, once overshadowed and underestimated, began to absorb the praise Anne had spent a lifetime earning. Media outlets, once fixated on Anne's tireless work ethic, were suddenly hailing Camilla as the monarchy's modern face. To Anne, it felt less like a shift in tone and more like an erasure. What she had built with sweat and silence was being effortlessly repackaged in Camilla's name. And then came the deeper clash vision. Anne had long championed causes rooted in tradition, veterans, agriculture, and the preservation of British identity. Camilla, by contrast, leaned toward modern issues support for domestic abuse survivors, women's rights, and mental health. Worthy causes, yes, but in Anne's eyes, conveniently topical, carefully curated for media applause. The two women's priorities collided behind closed doors during foundation meetings, with insiders recalling Camilla dismissing Anne's focus as dated. The tipping point came when Camilla allegedly vetoed a speech Anne was due to give at a major Commonwealth event. A speech Anne had written herself, filled with decades of insight, silenced not by the press, but by her own sister-in-law. Tensions boiled over during the Queen's Jubilee, a moment meant to unify, yet palace seating arrangements did the opposite. Anne and Camilla, once positioned side by side during such events, were deliberately distanced. Cameras caught the coldness, an exchanged glance sharper than any royal statement. Whispers among aides confirmed the frost. Anne had stormed out of a closed-door meeting days before, after Camilla overruled her on a matter of protocol. For someone like Anne, whose life had been bound by order and precedence, it was more than an insult. It was insubordination. Public appearances between the two became increasingly rare, and when they did happen, the chemistry was unmistakable, cold, clipped, cautious. Reporters stopped asking about joint engagements because they knew the answer. Anne had retreated into silence, but that silence was thunderous. Camilla, meanwhile, leaned further into her role, fully aware that her ascendancy came at a cost, and Anne was the one paying it. But the final spark wasn't just about duty or image, it was about loyalty, and a shocking myth. Only took one move, one devastating revelation for Camilla to draw the line, and it came not from an outsider, but from within the firm. Princess Anne crossed a boundary, and in doing so, ignited a royal explosion no one could contain. The leak hit the tabloids with surgical precision. A seasoned royal journalist, Long, affiliated with Britain's equestrian elite, published a scathing article quoting Camilla's alleged private remarks about both Meghan and Kate, remarks never meant for public ears. The tone was sharp, dismissive, and deeply personal. Sources within the palace didn't question whether the comments were real. They questioned how they had escaped. All signs pointed back to Anne. The journalist's long-standing ties to Anne's riding circle gave the rumour legs, and quickly, the dots began connecting themselves. Camilla didn't wait for confirmation. To her, the betrayal was undeniable and unforgivable. In a tense meeting behind palace doors, Camilla reportedly confronted Anne directly. No cameras, no protocol, just fury. She accused Anne of sabotage, of deliberately feeding the media to erode her credibility and destabilize the monarchy's fragile unity. Witnesses say the room went silent when Anne didn't deny it. Instead, she stood firm. Charles, caught between two pillars of Camilla and his world, tried desperately to mediate. He asked Anne, some say pleaded, for a public apology, but Anne, unmoved and unapologetic, delivered a line that would echo across the monarchy. Truth needs no apology. It wasn't just defiance. It was a declaration of independence. Camilla's retaliation was swift and absolute. She demanded Anne be excluded from upcoming key engagements, citing the need for operational trust. It wasn't about public punishment, it was about asserting dominance. Notices went out quietly to staff. Anne was to have no involvement in events where Camilla held patronage. Invitations were retracted. It was a clean and brutal severance. Overnight, Anne went from central figure to strategic outsider. The palace, usually discreet in its machinery, couldn't hide the shift. What once had been simmering tension had now turned to open fracture. To the public, it still appeared calm, but within royal corridors, it was chaos. Loyalty was being redrawn, power was being recalibrated, and the monarchy, long dependent on unity and illusion, was now cracking under the weight of an internal war. The betrayal wasn't about the remarks themselves, it was about the breach of trust. Camilla believed Anne had weaponized truth to destroy image. And in a family that trades in legacy, image is everything. But as the public caught wind of the drama, the monarchy was forced into damage control and the spin machine kicked into overdrive, omen of betrayal that Camilla never saw coming. The royal PR machine has buried scandals for generations. But this time, it wasn't enough. The cracks were too wide, and the palace's attempts to bury the fallout between Anne and Camilla only raised more suspicions and made the truth even more dangerous. The moment the story began slipping beyond palace walls, a familiar operation went into motion: silence, redirection, and control. But this wasn't the 90s, and the game had changed. The first red flag appeared in subtle digital censorship. Anne, once prominently featured in official royal posts, began to vanish from the imagery. Cropped photos. Group shots carefully framed to exclude her. At first, it seemed accidental. Then, it became impossible to ignore. When journalists inquired, they were met with an eerie wall of denial. No statements, no explanations, just a quiet erasure that screamed louder than any headline. Behind closed doors, the firm was in full defense mode, briefing royal commentators to steer clear of the rift and shift public focus to charity milestones and royal engagements. But the silence only fueled the fire. Whispers emerged of staffers being offered hush contracts, legal documents with ironclad confidentiality clauses. One former aide, known for handling both Anne and Camilla's events, reportedly refused to sign. Within weeks, they vanished from media circuits, interviews cancelled, their public presence scrubbed. It was a pattern too familiar, too intentional. The silence was deafening and strategic. The palace wasn't just burying a story. It was erasing a fracture in real time. Then came the most brazen cover-up yet. An early draft of King Charles's Christmas address had included a heartfelt nod to his sister, a subtle but significant gesture in light of the rumours. But by the time it aired, Anne's name had been removed entirely. Official word blamed a clerical oversight, but insiders knew better. It was deliberate, tactical. A message to Anne and to the public that she was no longer part of the inner circle. To make matters worse, Video footage of Anne brushing past Camilla without a glance at a Remembrance Day service, which had briefly gone viral online, mysteriously vanished from multiple platforms. Pulled down for copyright reasons, they said. But viewers knew what they'd seen. And the more they tried to forget it, the more unforgettable it became. The more the palace silenced, the louder the public grew. Questions turned to demands. Supporters of Anne flooded social media, asking why the woman known for her lifetime of service was now being sidelined. The tabloids, once compliant, smelled blood. They wanted more. The royal silence had collapsed under its own weight, exposing not just a family at war, but an institution scrambling to contain the fallout of a conflict it could no longer hide. Yet no amount of spin could hide the shifting alliances happening behind the gates, and one key royal found herself forced to choose a side. For King Charles, this wasn't just palace politics, it was personal. Between his beloved sister and his queen, he stood in emotional no man's land. But the choice he made would shatter one bond forever and alter the monarchy's balance of power. From childhood, Anne had been Charles's steady compass, the only sibling who truly understood the pressure of duty, the suffocation of expectation. Through the turbulence of his first marriage and the storm that followed Diana's death, Anne remained. She never sought the spotlight, but she never left his side. At one of his lowest points, Charles reportedly told a close aide that Anne was his last safe place. Their bond, forged in quiet moments and decades of unspoken loyalty, seemed unbreakable. Until Camilla. Until now. The Queen's patience had worn thin, and her tolerance for Anne's resistance had evaporated. Behind closed doors, Camilla issued what royal insiders described as a chilling ultimatum: full loyalty or further embarrassment. She made it clear that unless Charles reined in his sister, the fallout would escalate. And this time, it would be public. Torn and tormented, Charles reached out to Anne, hoping to broker peace in the only way he knew: quietly, without confrontation. He asked for reconciliation behind closed doors, a joint appearance, a public handshake, anything that would hint at unity. But Anne, still fuming from what she saw as betrayal and marginalization, stood her ground. Her response was sharp, final, and cold enough to slice through decades of family history. "I don't pretend." In that single sentence, she drew her own line. She wouldn't play palace games. She wouldn't be Camilla's prop. And in doing so, she made the decision for Charles even harder. Their emotional phone calls became known to senior aides, some of whom reported seeing Charles emerge from private rooms in tears. The king, so often guarded and composed, now looked fractured. Between the woman who had walked with him through fire and the woman who now stood beside him on the throne, there was no neutral ground. Every word was a gamble. Every silence, a choice. But the monarchy demanded an answer, and Charles gave one. At a high-profile charity event celebrating women in leadership, Camilla took center stage. And in a move that would cement the rift forever, Charles delivered a glowing tribute to his wife, not just as queen, but as the heart of a new era for the monarchy. Anne had been deliberately excluded from the event. Her absence was not an oversight, it was a statement, one that echoed across every royal watcher's timeline, across headlines and whispers, across the family itself. The choice had been made. Camilla was the queen, not just in title, but in power. But the damage wasn't contained to royal halls, because now the public was beginning to take sides. The royal watchers were ravenous, the tabloids insatiable, and the nation split. Anne, the steadfast royal; Camilla, the queen with a complicated past. As news of their rift exploded into mainstream headlines, Buckingham Palace found itself at war, not just with itself, but with the people. It started quietly, a murmur in the polls, a shift in public sentiment. But it snowballed with astonishing speed. Surveys began reflecting what many had long whispered. Anne was the most trusted royal. Not Charles, not Camilla, not even William. Saw in Anne something rare: authenticity, grit, and a refusal to play the game. Camilla, on the other hand, became a lightning rod. Her rise from royal mistress to queen was already controversial, but now, against Anne's quiet strength, it felt, to many, like a betrayal of what the monarchy once stood for. Social media turned into a battlefield. Hashtags like #TeamAnne, #NotMyQueen, and #JusticeForAnne began trending across platforms. Videos dissecting old clips of the two women lingering glances, awkward nods, frozen smiles went viral. TikToks, Instagram Reels, and comment threads became digital case studies in royal body language, each frame used as evidence in a trial by public opinion. And for every official statement the palace didn't make, the internet filled in the blanks with fury, sarcasm, and speculation. Newspapers, once deferential to the monarchy, began publishing sharp editorials, questioning Camilla's durability as queen. Could she truly hold her ground in the long term? Would this public divide ever be healed? And more dangerously, some pieces began asking whether Anne Long, the monarchy's iron spine, should have a more central role. Whispers of a regency model surfaced. Some even floated the unthinkable, a revised line of influence, where Anne acted as a stabilizing figurehead in moments of national unrest. It wasn't just fantasy, it was a reckoning. The royal family's once invincible facade had fractured. Even their most loyal supporters began asking painful questions. Where was the unity? Why was a woman of Anne's caliber being pushed aside, silenced, cut off? Was the monarchy still about duty and tradition, or had it become a stage for soft power and curated images? Inside the palace, the tension was no longer about Camilla and Anne alone. It was about the future of the crown and who the people would choose to follow when the glitter wore off. The rift had become a symbol of deeper unrest, and Buckingham Palace was losing control of the narrative. And just when it seemed the monarchy had hit rock bottom, Princess Anne delivered a speech that turned the tide yet again. Anne broke her silence, not with a press conference, not with a tabloid leak, but with a speech so masterfully veiled, so elegantly scathing, that it sent shockwaves through the monarchy. Every sentence dripped with coded fury, every pause a dagger. It was a humanitarian awards ceremony, an event Anne had attended countless times over the years. But this one was different. With the monarchy crumbling under the weight of public division, all eyes were on her, and she knew it. From the moment she took the podium, the room shifted. Her tone was calm, her delivery deliberate, but her words cut deeper than any headline ever could. "There is strength in service," she began, "and danger in forgetting why the crown exists." That single line landed like thunder. She spoke of fragile crowns polished with ego, of traditions twisted to fit new appetites, and those who confuse applause with purpose. There were no names, no direct accusations, but no one in that room, no one in the country questioned who she was talking about. Analysts scrambled to dissect every phrase. Experts in royal rhetoric called it one of the most significant passive-aggressive declarations in modern Windsor history. It was Anne without armor, but still wielding a blade. The room erupted into a standing ovation, audible, emotional, defiant. Yet not everyone stood. Reportedly, several senior royals remained seated, their silence louder than applause. And Camilla? She wasn't even there. But she had been just down the hall at a neighbouring event, one she left early under the vague excuse of unforeseen schedule changes. The timing wasn't lost on anyone, nor was her absence from all post-event photographs or comment. When Charles was asked by the press about his sister's words, he offered no in response. Not even a diplomatic nod, just a quiet, visibly pained walk to his car. The silence spoke volumes, and for the British public, it was confirmation of what many already felt. Anne wasn't just speaking her truth, she was speaking the truth. The press erupted in admiration. Headlines called her the Iron Princess. Editorials praised her for doing what no one else in the family dared, challenging the throne without toppling it. In a single night, Anne redefined what royalty could look like. Not polished perfection, but unwavering principle. Across social media, the response was electric. Young and old, loyalists and skeptics, everyone seemed united under the raw honesty of her message. It wasn't just a speech. It was a reckoning, one that peeled back the palace curtains and reminded the nation that the crown, in all its glory, still required guardians, not just figureheads. Anne had spoken, and though her words were wrapped in protocol, they were anything but soft. But if Anne's words were ice, Camilla's next move would be fire, and the final act in this royal reckoning. Camilla had enough. No more veils, no more restraint. Her next move didn't just end the feud, it carved it into royal stone. A decision so final, so cold, that insiders questioned if the monarchy could ever recover from the fracture. The final blow came not through confrontation, but through calculated dismissal. Without warning, Camilla revoked one of Anne's longest-held honorary patronages, an equestrian charity Anne had supported for over a decade. The charity, now realigned under Camilla's patronage, issued a generic statement praising Her Majesty's ongoing support. But behind the scenes, it was clear. This wasn't succession. It was erasure. Weeks later, Anne's team reportedly received official correspondence returned unopened and marked redirected. Communications to the Queen's office were being turned away. For the first time in royal history, a working royal's access to the Queen was formally and structurally severed. The damage wasn't symbolic. It was institutional. Joint appearances between Anne and Camilla were permanently suspended, according to an internal memo that was never meant to reach the public, but it did. And when it did, it confirmed what many had feared: the split was no longer private. It was now policy. Camilla's hold on royal protocol had grown ironclad, and with each move, she rewrote the rules in real time. Rumours swirled that a formal portrait of Anne, once hanging in Clarence House, had been quietly removed. Not replaced, just taken down, like a memory that no longer served the present. And then came the birthday, Anne's 74th, an age of legacy, of honour, of reflection. But King Charles was absent. Not a public message, not a family appearance, not even a subtle nod during his scheduled address that week. It was more than a slight. It was silence weaponized. That silence spoke louder than any tribute ever could. The palace offered no explanation, and Charles, once emotionally torn between sister and wife, remained still, voiceless, and complicit. For Anne, the meaning was unmistakable. The war was over, and she had been written out of the script. Royal sources, once optimistic about healing, now echoed a darker sentiment. Reconciliation is no longer on the table, one insider admitted. There's no going back. The monarchy had chosen a path, and in doing so, had sacrificed a bond that had anchored it for generations. Anne, the pillar of royal duty, now stood isolated, not by choice, but by decree. And Camilla, now firmly in control, had made her message crystal clear. Opposition would not be tolerated, not even from blood. And so, the silence between Queen Camilla and Princess Anne isn't just a personal fracture, it's a gaping wound in the royal fabric, one that whispers of deeper betrayals, colder truths, and a crown more divided than ever before. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one. Perfect. Your closing section is complete, emotionally charged, and perfectly aligned with the tone and structure of the entire exposé. It delivers the final punch, ties up the central arc with cinematic severity, and ends with a resonant visual of royal division that will leave your audience stunned and wanting more. If you're ready, I can now compile the full script into one seamless document, or help you build out your next title in the same dramatic style.